The War Council chamber on Talvaris thrummed with anticipation. Admiral Grath spread his four arms across the holographic display, watching the blue-green world rotate before him. Earth, the third planet from an unremarkable yellow star, his newest conquest. "This will take less than a day," Grath announced to his assembled officers. "Their most advanced technology is barely capable of reaching their own moon. They broadcast primitive radio signals into space like children shouting in the dark." Commander Nyla stepped forward, her scaled skin reflecting the pale light of the display. "The reconnaissance data shows divided nations, over 200 separate governments. They fight among themselves constantly." Grath's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Perfect. A fragmented species is a defeated species. How many ships do we commit?" 300 warships should be excessive for a world like this," Nyla replied. "But protocol demands we demonstrate Dominion strength." The Admiral nodded. 300 ships, the same force that had shattered the defenses of Krell Prime in under an hour. For Earth, it would be like crushing an insect with a hammer. "What of their military capabilities?" asked General Vosk, the ground invasion commander. Nyla manipulated the hologram, bringing up images of Earth's crewed aircraft and naval vessels. "They use chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons, explosive devices. Their most powerful weapons could barely scratch our hull plating. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no quantum drives." "They are primitives," Grath said. "This is not a battle. This is a claiming. We will broadcast our terms, they will refuse out of ignorance, and we will demonstrate what happens to those who deny the Dominion." The fleet departed Talvaris 3 cycles later, 300 vessels arranged in perfect formation, cutting through the fabric of space with quantum drives that bent reality itself. Inside the flagship, Grath reviewed the intelligence reports again. Something about this felt too easy, but he dismissed the thought. The Dominion had conquered 847 worlds. Earth would be 848. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, director Rachel Webb watched the same fleet approach on her screens. The Global Defense Coordination Center hummed with quiet activity. Technicians monitored hundreds of displays, satellite feeds, quantum sensors, energy readings. Everything the Dominion fleet was doing, Earth knew about it. "They just crossed Jupiter's orbit," reported Lieutenant Commander Hassan from his station. "Maintaining formation. No attempt at stealth." Webb sipped her coffee, her eyes never leaving the central display. "Why would they hide? They think we're ants." President David Park descended the stairs into the command center, flanked by 2 security officers. His face showed the weight of what was coming. "Director Webb, status." "The Dominion fleet will reach Earth orbit in 42 minutes, Webb replied. "Everything is ready." Park looked at the massive display showing Earth's apparent defenselessness. No visible satellites, no orbital platforms, no ships rising to meet the threat. "Are you certain this will work?" "Mr. President, we've been preparing for this moment for 40 years. Since the day we detected our first alien signal and realized we weren't alone." Webb pulled up another screen showing hidden installations across the solar system. "They see what we want them to see." The president nodded slowly. "How many people know the truth?" "About Earth's real capabilities, maybe 5,000 across the entire planet. Everyone else thinks we're genuinely defenseless." Webb smiled grimly. "Even our own militaries don't know what we built." 40 years ago, a radio telescope in Chile had detected an alien transmission. Not a signal sent to Earth, but chatter between 2 alien vessels passing through nearby space. The message was decoded within weeks. It spoke of conquest, of inferior species, of the Dominion's endless expansion. Humanity's governments, for once in history, had united in secret, not to announce first contact, not to celebrate, but to prepare, to build, to hide what they were building. They studied the intercepted transmissions, learned alien languages, decoded their technology, understood their arrogance. The Dominion conquered primitive worlds because primitive worlds were easy. They never expected resistance because resistance required technology, and technology required time. Earth had bought that time by hiding in plain sight. 30 minutes to contact, Hassan announced. Webb activated the communications array. Send word to all stations. Stealth fields remain active until my direct order. No one breaks silence early. Across the solar system, invisible to Dominion sensors, 200 defense platforms waited. On the moon's far side, weapons arrays lay dormant beneath false rock. In the asteroid belt, automated factories continued their silent work. Near Mars, hunter-killer drones floated in powered-down mode, appearing as nothing more than space debris. All of it invisible, all of it waiting. Grath's fleet emerged from quantum transit at the edge of Earth's gravity well. The blue planet hung before them, beautiful and undefended. Scan for orbital defenses, Grath commanded. No weapons platforms detected, no military satellites, no defense grid, reported the sensor officer. Admiral, there is nothing here. They are completely exposed. Grath felt a moment of disappointment. He had hoped for at least token resistance, something to make the conquest memorable. Open a communication channel to the planet's surface, all frequencies. The channel activated. Grath's image was now broadcasting to every screen, every radio, every device on Earth capable of receiving a signal. People of Earth, I am Admiral Grath of the Dominion Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our territory. You will surrender immediately and accept Dominion rule. Refuse and your cities will burn. You have 5 minutes to respond. In the command center, Webb watched the broadcast with cold eyes. Mr. President, he's given us 5 minutes. Park stepped to the communication station. Put me through. The president's face appeared on Grath's screen. A human, soft features, no natural armor, no claws, no weapons. Admiral Grath, Park said calmly, we request 24 hours to consider your terms. Grath's mandibles clicked in amusement. You have 5 minutes, not 24 hours. Choose now. Park glanced at Webb. She gave the smallest nod. Then we choose to decline, Park said simply. Grath felt a surge of satisfaction. So be it. Commander Nyla, target their largest cities. Prepare to fire. The communication ended. Webb's fingers flew across her controls. All stations, she said quietly into her headset. Drop stealth fields. Activate Cascade Protocol. Show them what Earth really is. Across the solar system, 200 defense platforms shimmered into existence, their stealth fields collapsing. Energy readings spiked across every Dominion sensor. In his command chair, Grath stared at his displays in growing horror. They had been surrounded the entire time. Grath's primary heart skipped a beat as his sensors lit up like a supernova. 200 contacts, no more appearing every second. Weapons platforms, orbital stations, energy signatures that made his tactical officers screen flash warning symbols in angry red. Where did these come from? Grath roared. How did we miss them? Nyla's hands trembled over her controls. Admiral, they were using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors showed nothing. Empty space. But they were there the entire time. How advanced is their stealth? Grath demanded. The science officer looked up from his station, his face pale. Admiral, to hide from our quantum sensors would require technology at least equivalent to our own, possibly more advanced. Grath felt cold fear creep up his spine. Fire all weapons. Destroy those platforms before they can attack. 300 Dominion warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bolts screamed across space. Missiles launched. Energy beams carved through the void. It was enough firepower to glass a continent. Every single shot missed. The Earth platforms moved. Not with thrusters. not with conventional drives. They simply displaced, vanishing from one position and reappearing in another, as if space itself was folding around them. "They have quantum displacement technology," the science officer whispered. "That's impossible. It took us 3,000 years to develop that." Then Earth fired back. The first salvo was railgun fire. Solid tungsten rounds accelerated to .3 light speed. They punched through Dominion shields like they weren't there. 6 warships exploded in the first 2 seconds. Their reactors breached, creating miniature stars that flashed and died in the cold of space. The second salvo was directed energy. Not lasers, not plasma, something else. Beams of coherent particles that didn't just damage hulls, they disrupted the molecular bonds holding them together. Metal turned to dust. Armor plating sublimated into gas. 12 more ships disintegrated. Grath watched his fleet die and couldn't comprehend it. This was supposed to be easy, a primitive world, a simple conquest. What was happening? "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "All ships break formation and scatter. Get us out of range." But there was no out of range. The Earth weapons tracked every ship with perfect accuracy. No matter how his vessels twisted and turned, the targeting never wavered. Commander Nyla brought up tactical data. "Admiral, we've lost 75 ships in 90 seconds. Our fleet effectiveness is down 40%. 90 seconds. Grath had been in combat for 3 decades. He had fought in the Krell Wars, the Vanni's Rebellion, the Siege of Mordak Station. Never had he seen a fleet shredded this quickly. "Retreat," Grath ordered. "Full quantum drive. Get us out of this system." The fleet turned to run. Drives powered up. Space began to fold as ships prepared to leap away. Nothing happened. "Commander, why aren't we moving?" Grath demanded. Nyla's face had gone from pale to ashen. "The quantum field is being disrupted. Something is generating interference across the entire region. We can't form a stable transition tunnel." "They've trapped us here," Grath said quietly. A new alert blared across every console. Proximity warnings. Thousands of them. The screens filled with contacts emerging from the asteroid belt. Small craft, each one no larger than a fighter, but there were so many of them. "Hunter-killer drones," the tactical officer reported. "Estimate 4,000 units inbound." The drones moved with frightening intelligence. They didn't attack in waves. They coordinated, flanked, adapted. When Dominion Point Defense took down one drone, 3 others would immediately adjust their approach to avoid the same fate. Grath watched as the drones swarmed his ships. They attached to hulls and detonated shaped charges that burrowed through armor. They targeted engines, weapons arrays, life support, everything critical. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," Nyla said. "Put it through." The human woman from before appeared. Director Webb, the data feed identified her as. She sat in what looked like an underground facility, surrounded by dozens of technicians. "Admiral Grath," Webb said calmly, "you have 2 options. Order your remaining ships to power down all weapons and surrender, or continue fighting and be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to decide." Grath's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You cannot do this. The Dominion will send more fleets, larger fleets. You cannot stand against the entire empire." Webb smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Admiral, you seem to think you're talking to a primitive species that got lucky. Let me correct that assumption. We've been monitoring your empire for 40 years. We've decoded your transmissions, mapped your territories, studied your technology. We know everything about you. And while you were busy conquering other worlds, we were preparing for the day you noticed us." "Impossible," Grath said. "Our quantum encryption is unbreakable." "It was unbreakable 20 years ago," Webb replied. "We broke it 15 years ago. We've been inside your networks ever since, watching and waiting. Did you really think we would just sit here helpless while you approached? Humanity survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. We don't give up. We prepare. We adapt. We survive. Grath looked at his tactical display. 140 ships left out of 300, more dying every second. His communication officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're trying to send a distress signal to Talvaris, but the relay satellites are gone. Earth destroyed them before we even realized the battle had started." They had been cut off, surrounded, outmaneuvered at every turn. Grath had walked into this system thinking he was the hunter. Now he understood the truth. Earth had been the hunter all along. His fleet was just prey that had finally wandered into the trap. 30 seconds, Admiral, Webb said. Grath closed his eyes. 300 ships, 15,000 crew, all dead or about to die because he had underestimated an enemy. The oldest mistake in warfare. "All ships," he transmitted on the fleet-wide channel. "Power down weapons. Disengage shields. Prepare to be boarded. We surrender." The firing stopped. The drones halted their attacks, hovering in place around the remaining Dominion vessels. Earth's platforms held position, weapons still charged and ready. Webb nodded. "A wise decision, Admiral. Your surviving crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Your ships will be seized, and you will have the honor of being the first Dominion commander to explain to your Supreme Regent how a primitive species destroyed the most powerful fleet in your navy." The transmission ended. Grath sat in his command chair and stared at Earth, that beautiful blue world, so innocent-looking, so deadly. 5 minutes. The battle had lasted 5 minutes. His empire had no idea what was coming. Supreme Regent Coral sat on his throne in the Imperial Palace, reviewing production reports from the outer colonies. Boring work, but necessary. The Dominion did not maintain itself. 847 worlds required constant administration. His aide, Minister Prax, rushed into the chamber. The minister's usual composure was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. "Supreme Regent, we have a situation. Admiral Grath's fleet at Earth, it has gone silent." Coral set down his data tablet. "Silence, explain." "All communication stopped 7 minutes ago. The last transmission was a distress signal, fragmented, incomplete, something about being surrounded." "Surrounded?" Coral stood. "By what? Earth has no fleet, no orbital defense. We have 40 years of reconnaissance data." Prax brought up a holographic display. "That is what our data indicated, yes, but the distress signal suggested otherwise. Before we lost contact entirely, fleet telemetry showed massive casualties. Over half the fleet destroyed in the first few minutes." Coral felt his blood run cold. 300 warships destroyed. By primitives, this is impossible. "I thought so too, Supreme Regent. But we cannot contact any ship in that fleet. Every relay satellite in the sector is offline. Even our long-range quantum sensors are being jammed somehow." Coral's mind raced. If Grath had been defeated, it would be the first Dominion fleet lost in 2 centuries. The political implications would be catastrophic. The outer colonies might see it as weakness. Rebellious factions would gain courage. "Assemble the Grand Armada," Coral ordered. 2,000 ships, every available vessel. We will crush this Earth and make an example of them that will echo across the galaxy. Prax nodded and left to relay the orders. Coral stood alone in his throne room, staring at the star map that showed Dominion territory. 847 worlds, the work of 500 years. He would not let one primitive planet threaten that legacy. The Grand Armada began assembling in orbit above Talvaris. Warships arrived from every corner of Dominion space. Dreadnoughts, carriers, siege platforms capable of cracking planets. It was the largest military deployment in history, enough force to conquer entire sectors. In the command center beneath Geneva, Director Webb watched the Dominion mobilize. The spy satellites humanity had planted in their space were working perfectly, providing real-time intelligence. "They're gathering a massive fleet," reported Dr. Lee Hammond, head of Earth's Cyber Warfare Division. "Looks like 2,000 ships, maybe more." "Let them come," Webb said. "We're ready. Is the virus in position?" Hammond smiled. "It's been in position for 6 months, sleeping dormant in every major system across Dominion space. Military networks, power grids, manufacturing, transportation, everything, just waiting for the activation signal." President Park entered the command center looking grim. "Director, I need to know we're doing the right thing. We're about to attack not just their fleet but their entire civilization." Webb turned to face him. "Mr. President, they came here to exterminate us, to take our world and enslave or kill every human being. We didn't start this war, but we're going to end it in a way that ensures they can never threaten us again." Park nodded slowly. "When do we activate the virus?" "As soon as their Grand Armada powers up their quantum drives. The energy surge from that many ships will mask our signal. They won't even know what hit them until it's too late." On Talvaris, the Grand Armada finished final preparations. 2,000 ships in perfect formation, floating above the capital world. Supreme Regent Coral stood in the Fleet Command Center, addressing his admirals. "This is not just a military mission," Coral announced. "This is a message to the entire galaxy. No one defies the Dominion. No one defeats our fleets. Earth will be reduced to ash, every city burned, every human dead or enslaved. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can stand against us." The admirals saluted. The order went out. "All ships prepare for quantum transit to Earth's system." 2,000 quantum drives began powering up simultaneously. The energy readings were enormous. Space itself rippled from the combined power output. In Geneva, Dr. Hammond watched his monitors. "Energy surge detected. It's perfect cover. Sending activation signal now." His fingers moved across the keyboard. A single command. 27 characters of code, transmitted through quantum channels that the Dominion didn't even know Earth could access. Across 847 worlds, the virus woke up. It had been planted slowly over 18 months, disguised as routine updates, hidden in software patches, buried in communication protocols. The Dominion's own networks had spread it for humanity, never knowing what they carried. Now it activated all at once. On Talvaris, the lights went out. The Grand Armada's quantum drives failed. Navigation systems crashed. Weapons arrays locked up. Ships that had been ready to leap across the galaxy were suddenly dead in space, their crews staring at blank screens. "What is happening?" Coral screamed. "Get power restored now." His technicians scrambled, but nothing worked. Every system was infected, every backup corrupted. The virus wasn't just shutting things down. It was rewriting core programming, making the damage permanent. Across the capital city, power grids collapsed. Automated traffic systems failed, causing massive pileups. Communication networks went silent. The planetary defense shield flickered and died. "Supreme Regent," Prax reported, his voice shaking. "It is not just here. We are receiving reports from every world in Dominion space. The same failures. Everything is down. Power, communications, weapons, everything." Coral sank into his chair. "How is this possible? How could they do this?" A message appeared on every functional screen in the throne room. Text only. Written in perfect Dominion script. "From the people of Earth. You came to conquer us. Instead, you taught us where you lived. You showed us your technology. You demonstrated your arrogance. We have been inside your networks for years, watching and learning. Your empire is built on technology. We just turned that technology against you. Consider this a warning. Leave Earth alone. Leave humanity alone. Or the next time we won't just shut down your systems. We will erase them entirely." The message disappeared. Coral sat in darkness, his empire crumbling around him. 847 worlds, all crippled simultaneously. The virus had spread through every connected system, and the Dominion connected everything. On the outer worlds, the subject species saw their chance. The Krell, enslaved for 200 years, rose up against their overseers. The Vannies, conquered a century ago, seized control of their orbital platforms. Across Dominion space, rebellion sparked. The Empire was fracturing. Webb watched it all from Geneva, satellite feeds showing chaos erupting on world after world. How long until they can restore their systems? Hammond consulted his data. The virus is adaptive. Every time they try to patch one system, it corrupts 3 more. Realistically, months, maybe years. Their empire is offline, Director. We just defeated them without firing a single shot at their homeworld. President Park stood beside Webb, watching history unfold. 500 years they built that empire. We just brought it down in 5 minutes. They should have left us alone, Webb said simply. Supreme Regent Coral climbed the stairs to the Imperial Archives by hand. The elevators were dead. Everything powered was dead. 3 days had passed since Earth's virus had turned the Dominion's own technology into a weapon against itself. Outside the palace walls, Talvaris descended into chaos. Without automated systems, food distribution had collapsed. Transportation was paralyzed. The carefully maintained infrastructure of an advanced civilization had become a tomb of useless machinery. Minister Prax waited at the archive entrance, holding an actual flame torch, something Coral had only seen in museums. "The Technical Guild has a report," Prax said quietly. "You will not like it." Coral took the printed document, printed on actual paper like primitives. The irony was not lost on him. "Tell me." "The virus is alive," Prax explained. "Not metaphorically. It is genuinely alive in our systems. Every time our technicians isolate and remove it from one network, it replicates somewhere else. It learns from their attempts, adapts, grows stronger." "How long to purge it completely?" Prax hesitated. "The Guild estimates 3 years minimum, possibly 5. We would have to rebuild every computer system from scratch, rewrite all software, replace all hardware that has been compromised. The cost would be astronomical. And if we do nothing, then we remain in the dark, forever. Earth has effectively sent us back to the pre-computer age." Coral crumpled the paper in his fist. "I want options, military options." "Supreme Regent, we have no military. The Grand Armada is floating dead in orbit. Ground forces have no communications, no transportation, no logistics. Our weapons require computer targeting. Our armor requires powered systems. We are defenseless." A junior minister rushed up the stairs, breathing hard. "Supreme Regent, urgent news. The Krell have seized their homeworld. They have declared independence, so have the Vannies, and the Mordaki, and 17 other subject species. They are using our own disabled ships against the garrison forces." Coral felt the weight of 500 years of empire crushing down on him. How many worlds remain loyal? "Unknown. We cannot communicate with most of our territory. The relay network is completely down. What little information we receive comes through primitive radio, and the reports are all the same. Rebellion, independence, chaos." The empire was dying, not from military defeat, not from economic collapse, from a virus created by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Contact Earth," Coral said. "Whatever it takes, I will speak to their leaders." Prax shook his head. "We have tried. They ignore all our transmissions. They shut us down and walked away." For the first time in his life, Supreme Regent Coral felt genuine fear. Earth had not conquered the Dominion through superior firepower. They had done something far more devastating. They had made the Dominion irrelevant. Below the Imperial Palace, in the underground bunkers where backup systems still functioned on isolated power, First Minister Orana watched the same reports with different eyes. She had never supported Coral's aggressive expansion. The attack on Earth had been his decision, pushed through over her objections. Now she saw an opportunity. Orana gathered the ministers who shared her views, those who believed the Dominion had grown too large, too cruel, too focused on conquest rather than cooperation. Coral's rule is finished, Orana said. The empire as we know it is finished, but we can build something better from the ruins. Minister Ralak, an old warrior who had fought in the Krell Wars, nodded. What do you propose? We remove Coral from power. We negotiate with Earth. We offer peace, cooperation, and restitution for our attack. We transform the Dominion from an empire into a federation of equal partners. The Loyalists will never accept this, another minister warned. The Loyalists have no power, Orana replied. Their weapons do not work, their ships do not fly. What will they fight us with? Harsh language. The ministers shared glances. They all knew she was right. The old order was dead. What came next was their choice to make. That night, Orana's supporters moved through the darkened palace. They met no resistance. The guards had deserted their posts days ago, more concerned with finding food for their families than protecting a regime that could no longer pay them. They found Coral in his throne room, alone in the darkness. Supreme Regent, Orana said formally, I am relieving you of command. Coral did not seem surprised, did not resist, he simply nodded. You are making a mistake. Earth must be punished for this. Earth defended itself from our aggression, Orana replied. They defeated us, completely, utterly, without even invading our worlds or killing our civilians. They simply turned off our machines and let us collapse under our own weight. That is not an enemy to punish. That is an enemy to respect, and then negotiate with. Coral was removed to his private quarters, stripped of all authority. Orana took control of what remained of the Dominion government. Her first act was to send a message to Earth, not through quantum networks, which were still dead, but through old radio transmission, the same primitive technology Earth had once used. The message was simple. People of Earth, I am First Minister Orana of Talvaris. I have removed Supreme Regent Coral from power. I wish to negotiate a peace between our peoples. Please respond. In Geneva, Director Webb received the transmission. Should we answer? President Park asked. Webb considered. They are broken, defeated, but eventually they will rebuild. Better to shape what they rebuild than to leave them resentful and hostile. What do you propose? We offer them help, not to restore their empire, but to build something new, a federation instead of an empire, equal partners instead of conquerors and conquered. We share some technology, not weapons, but medical advances, agricultural improvements, things that help rebuild their civilization along better lines. Park smiled. Turn an enemy into an ally. More than that, turn an empire into a democracy. Guide them away from conquest toward cooperation. It serves our interests better than leaving them to fester and seek revenge. The response was sent. Earth agreed to negotiations. A summit would be held. Terms would be discussed. The war, such as it was, would end. But Webb knew the truth. The war was already over. It had ended the moment Earth's virus activated. Everything after that was just accepting the new reality. Humanity had proven something fundamental. Technology could be a weapon. Information could be power. Preparation could overcome brute force. The Dominion had numbers, ships, soldiers, resources. Earth had patience, intelligence, and the will to do whatever was necessary to survive. In the end, that made all the difference. The summit took place in neutral space, aboard a specially constructed station between Earth and Dominion territory. First Minister Orana arrived with a delegation of 12 ministers, traveling on one of the few ships Earth had agreed to temporarily reactivate for the journey. President Park and Director Webb represented humanity, accompanied by ambassadors from 20 nations. This was not just Earth negotiating. This was humanity presenting a united front to the galaxy. Orana entered the conference chamber and stopped. She had expected a sterile environment, cold and utilitarian. Instead, the room was beautiful. Windows showed the stars. Plants grew in carefully tended gardens along the walls. Art from dozens of human cultures decorated the space. "Welcome, First Minister," Park said, standing to greet her. "Thank you for coming." Orana studied the human president, small by Dominion standards. No natural weapons, no armor, yet this fragile-looking species had brought her empire to its knees. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with us. After what we attempted, you would have been justified in refusing." "We could have," Webb said from her seat, "but that would not serve anyone's interests. Please sit." The delegations took their places across a circular table. No head position, no power dynamic, equal seating for equal partners. "Let us be direct," Orana began. "The Dominion is crippled. Our networks remain compromised. Most of our territory is in rebellion. We have nothing to bargain with. You hold every advantage. So I ask you plainly, what do you want from us?" Park exchanged glances with Webb. "We want peace." "That is all." "Not quite all," Webb clarified. "We want the Dominion to transform. Your empire was built on conquest and subjugation. That ends now. We want you to transition into a voluntary federation. Worlds choose to join rather than being forced. Representatives are elected rather than appointed. Military serves defense rather than expansion." Minister Ralak, the old warrior, bristled. "You would reshape our entire civilization." "Your civilization reshaped itself," Webb replied calmly. "When your systems collapsed, your subject species immediately rebelled. That tells us everything about how your empire was really held together. Fear and force. Not loyalty, not shared purpose, just control. That is not sustainable." "And if we refuse?" Ralak challenged. "Then you remain in the dark," Park said simply. "We will remove the virus from any world that agrees to our terms. Democratic governance, equal rights for all species, demilitarization and defensive-only armed forces, help from Earth to rebuild infrastructure and economy. Those who refuse can rebuild on their own, however long that takes." Orana saw the trap, not a cruel trap, actually a generous one, but a trap nonetheless. Accept Earth's terms and rebuild quickly with human help. Refuse and spend decades recovering to a hostile galaxy. There was only one real choice. "We agree to your framework," Orana said, "but we need specifics. What exactly are you offering?" Webb brought up holographic displays showing detailed proposals. "Medical technology to treat diseases affecting multiple species in your former empire. Agricultural methods to increase food production. Clean energy systems to replace your compromised power grids. Educational programs. Economic development assistance. We are offering a path forward that benefits everyone." "Why?" Orana asked. "Why help us after we attacked you?" Park leaned forward. "Because a stable galaxy serves Earth better than a chaotic one. Because turning enemies into partners is smarter than leaving them to seek revenge. Because humanity learned a long time ago that cooperation achieves more than domination. We have seen empires rise and fall on our own world. We know how this story ends if you try to rebuild the old Dominion. More wars, more suffering, more collapse. We are offering you a chance to break that cycle." Ralak shook his head. "You speak like conquerors pretending to be liberators." "We are not liberators," Webb said. "We did not invade your worlds. We did not occupy your territory. We simply defended ourselves and then offered you a choice. Take it or leave it. But make no mistake, we are not asking for your surrender. We are offering you a partnership. There is a difference." Orana understood. Earth was not trying to replace the Dominion as the dominant power. They were reshaping the entire concept of what power meant. Not control through force, influence through cooperation, It was subtle, sophisticated, and far more dangerous to resist than any military threat. "I will recommend my government accept your terms," Orana said, "but I have a question. What happens to Admiral Grath and the other prisoners from the initial fleet?" Park consulted a data pad. "Grath and his senior officers will stand trial for attempted genocide. The regular crew members who were just following orders will be repatriated once the treaty is signed. We are not interested in punishing people who had no choice, but leaders who make decisions must face consequences." "Fair," Orana agreed. "And what happens to Supreme Regent Coral?" "That is for your new government to decide. We have no interest in internal Dominion politics beyond ensuring they are democratic." The negotiations continued for 3 days. Details were hammered out, terms were refined, compromises were reached. In the end, a treaty emerged. The Dominion would dissolve as an empire and reform as the Talvaris Federation. Each world would have representatives in a central assembly. Member species would have equal votes. Military forces would be reduced and reorganized for defense only. Earth would provide technological assistance and economic support. In exchange, the Federation would share scientific knowledge and cultural exchanges. Trade agreements were established. Diplomatic relations formalized. When the treaty was signed, Orana looked at President Park. "You have changed the galaxy today. I hope you understand the responsibility that comes with that." "We do," Park replied. "Humanity has experience with great power. We know how easily it corrupts. That is why we are not seeking to rule. We are seeking to ensure that no one rules through fear again, including us." As the delegations prepared to depart, Webb pulled Orana aside privately. "First Minister, there is something you should know, the virus in your systems. We can remove it completely, but we are leaving a small piece behind, dormant, inactive. It will never trigger unless the Federation abandons the treaty and returns to conquest. Think of it as insurance." Orana felt a chill. "You are still controlling us." "No, we are ensuring you control yourselves. The virus only activates if you become a threat again. Follow the treaty, build your federation, live in peace, and you will never even know it exists. It is not about trust. It is about verification." Orana nodded slowly. She could be angry, but honestly, if their positions were reversed, she would do the same thing. "I understand." "I hope you do, because the galaxy is watching. This treaty sets a precedent. How it works will determine how other species interact with humanity. Make it work, First Minister. Build something better than the empire you lost." Orana returned to Talvaris with the treaty. The Assembly ratified it within a week. Across former Dominion space, worlds began the long process of transformation. Some eagerly, others reluctantly, but all of them understood the new reality. Earth had changed the rules of the game. Power was no longer just about weapons and ships. It was about information, preparation, and the wisdom to know when to fight and when to build. The age of empires was ending. The age of cooperation was beginning. And humanity, the species once dismissed as primitive, was leading the way. 6 months after the treaty signing, the First Galactic Assembly convened on Earth. Geneva had been chosen as the meeting site. A symbolic choice given it was where humanity had coordinated its defense. Representatives from 124 species gathered in a massive conference hall built specifically for the occasion. Former Dominion subjects, independent civilizations, even a few empires that had watched the Dominion fall and decided cooperation looked more appealing than confrontation. Director Rachel Webb stood at the edge of the hall, watching delegates from across the galaxy find their seats. She had retired from active duty after the treaty was finalized, but President Park had asked her to attend as an observer. "Strange, is it not?" a voice said beside her. Webb turned to see First Minister Orana. The Talvaris leader looked different, less burdened. She wore simpler clothes now, the heavy regalia of imperial office left behind. "What is strange?" Webb asked. "6 months ago I commanded an empire of 800 worlds. Today I represent a federation of 300. I should feel diminished. Instead, I feel relief." Webb smiled. "Empire is a heavy weight, democracy is easier, you share the burden." "And the mistakes," Orana added, "which is proving to be valuable. Our assembly argues constantly, but from those arguments come better solutions than any single ruler could devise." President Park called the assembly to order. The hall fell silent as the human leader addressed the gathered species. "Welcome to Earth, to humanity, to what we hope is the beginning of a new era of cooperation among the peoples of the galaxy. 6 months ago, we were forced to defend ourselves from aggression. Today, we stand with former enemies as partners. This is the path we choose, not isolation, not domination, but cooperation." The delegates applauded, not everyone enthusiastically. Some species remained skeptical of human intentions, but the applause came nonetheless. The Assembly's first act was to establish the Galactic Cooperation Council, not a government, not a ruling body, but a forum for discussion, mediation, and collective action on issues affecting multiple species: trade disputes, border conflicts, scientific collaboration, environmental crises. Earth provided the initial framework, but the Council would be governed by representatives from all member species. One world, one vote. No vetoes. No permanent Security Council seats. True equality. Ambassador Chen, representing Earth on the Council, stood to address a key concern. "Many of you worry about Earth's technological advantage, our defensive capabilities, our cyber warfare systems. We understand this fear. So we are proposing a transparency initiative. We will share detailed information about our military capabilities with the Council. Not the technology itself, but the scope and nature of what we possess. In exchange, we ask other species to do the same. Trust requires openness." A delegate from the Vannies Collective stood. "What about the virus you used against the Dominion? Do you still possess that weapon?" Chen did not hesitate. "Yes, we maintain the capability to deploy similar systems if Earth is threatened, but we commit to never using such weapons offensively, only in defense of Earth or our allies. This commitment is verifiable. We will allow Council-appointed inspectors to monitor our cyber warfare programs." The Vannies delegates sat, apparently satisfied. Others looked less convinced, but the offer was unprecedented. Great powers did not typically invite oversight. As the Assembly continued its work, Webb walked the halls with Dr. Lee Hammond. The cyber warfare chief looked tired but content. "How goes the virus removal?" Webb asked. "Slower than planned," Hammond admitted. "The Talvaris Federation is clean now, so are most of the major worlds, but some of the outer colonies are still infected. They do not trust us enough to let our teams in to purge the systems." "Can you do it remotely?" "Yes, but they asked us not to. They want to do it themselves, prove they can solve their own problems." Webb nodded. "Let them. Better they learn independence than become dependent on us. Even if it takes them years." "Especially if it takes them years. The goal is not to make them need us. It is to make them capable of standing without us." In another part of the building, Admiral Grath sat in a holding cell awaiting trial. He had been extradited to Earth to face charges of attempted genocide. The trial would be public, transparent. Every species in the galaxy would see how Earth applied justice. Grath did not expect mercy, nor did he deserve it, but he had been allowed to watch the Assembly proceedings from his cell. He saw his own people sitting as equals with species they had once enslaved. He saw cooperation replacing conquest. He saw the future the Dominion could never build. "You were right," Grath said to his guard, a human security officer. "We underestimated your species." The guard looked at him. Everyone does at first. We look soft, divided, weak, but humans are survivors. We have been fighting for existence since we lived in caves. We learned to plan, to adapt, to turn weakness into strength. The Dominion was powerful, but power without wisdom is just arrogance waiting to fail. What will happen to me? That is for the court to decide, but you will get a fair trial, evidence, defense counsel, due process, things your empire never gave the species you conquered. Grath nodded. Fair was more than he expected, more than he would have given if positions were reversed. The assembly concluded its first session with a joint declaration. All member species committed to peaceful resolution of disputes, to mutual defense against external threats, to sharing knowledge and resources, to building a galaxy based on cooperation rather than conquest. It was ambitious, idealistic. Many thought it would fail within a year. Different species had different needs, different values, different histories of conflict. But it did not fail. Trade increased. Scientific collaboration produced breakthroughs that benefited multiple species. Conflicts were mediated peacefully. The Council grew to include 200 species within 5 years. Earth remained a major power, but not the only power, not the dominant power, just one voice among many, which was exactly what humanity wanted. Director Webb, now truly retired, sat in her garden on the outskirts of Geneva. Her granddaughter, 8 years old, played nearby. "Grandmother, is it true you defeated an empire?" the child asked. Webb smiled. "I helped defend Earth from an empire, yes." "How did you do it?" "We prepared, we watched, we learned. And when they came for us, we were ready. But the real victory was not the battle. It was what we built afterward. We turned enemies into friends, conflict into cooperation. That is the harder thing. Any fool can fight. Building peace requires wisdom." The child thought about this. Will there be more wars? Probably. The galaxy is vast, but now we have tools to prevent wars. Dialogue, mediation, mutual interest, not perfect tools, but better than what came before. Webb looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there on hundreds of worlds, species once divided were learning to work together. It would not last forever. Nothing did. But for now there was peace. There was hope. There was progress. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest, through defense, through wisdom. Through the patient work of building something better than what existed before. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Power was not just about weapons. It was about preparation, intelligence, cooperation, and the will to defend what mattered while building bridges to former enemies. Earth had taught that lesson. Now the galaxy was learning to live by it. And that, Webb thought, was a victory worth all the effort.